In the workshop, a Diabolical model steam engine part 7. Everything on this engine does not line up. Time to attempt some basic realignment, starting with the crosshead guide. I removed the cloth and the magic trick didn't work, the engine was still here. In this episode, I'm not going to whinge on about how bad this engine is. I think if you've watched the first few episodes, you will be aware of that. The only parts of this engine that I think have been machined are the cylinder, the crankweb and the flywheel. The rest of the parts look like they've been made with a hacksaw, a hammer and a file, with quite a lot of holes drilled in the wrong place. This engine is a bit of a challenge, but I will make it go. One problem that does need correction is the general alignment of the cylinder with the crosshead bars, although really I didn't need to do this because the crosshead is such a sloppy fit. But in this condition, the engine just looks so wrong, I had to do something about it. I need to remove this screw from the middle of the bracket that holds the guide bars. This bracket is soldered to the base plate and underneath the screw is soldered in place. I don't know whether to refill my Proxon blowtorch with this butane gas or just sniff it to make the engine look better. I think I'll do both. Health and safety warning, it is not a good idea to sniff butane gas, or propane gas, or any gas for that matter. Even sniffing oxygen isn't a good idea. Once I filled the blowtorch, I left it on the bench for a while, to allow the cold liquid butane to warm up a bit. Now it's time to apply some heat to the bracket. I thought I'll just apply some heat to the bracket and unscrew the screw, but no, this job proved to be difficult all the way. I thought I'd show you what the problem is using a steel rule. This crosshead guide bar mounting bracket is definitely not in the right place. It's 3/8 of an inch from this end and 3/8 of an inch and a bit at the other end. 3/8 of an inch and a bit. By this time I was talking to myself, and everything is now starting to get quite hot. Underneath where this screw fits into the base plate is an awful lot of solder, and that needs to melt before I can release the screw. Here it is just starting to move, but it's still not giving way. I decided to undo the fixings that hold the guide bars to this bracket, just to stop the heat from going down the guide bars and affecting the major solder joint at the other end. Eventually, thankfully, the whole part came loose and I could remove it. And here I'm removing the excess solder using the edge of my steel rule. This is the underneath part of the engine, and as you can see there's a lot of solder in this area, and once I heated it up it ran badly. Now I'm heating it up again so it goes back into place. Real high-tech stuff in this episode. In this clip I'm refitting the guide bars, and then I'm going to move the position of this bracket over to the right very slightly. And the easiest way to do this was to turn the bracket around. I loosened both of the bolts holding the crosshead guide motion bracket to the base plate. Then I persuaded the assembly to move slightly to the right. Now it's time to drill a hole. I didn't think this was going to work out, but surprisingly it did. I was applying pressure on the drill bit to the right hand side, which means that the hole is slightly over to the right hand side. Now I'm threading the hole using a 5BA tap, and in this clip I'm fitting a corresponding 5BA countersunk bolt, which looks much better than the previous one, and it's in the right place. This is the only clip in this sequence where the crosshead actually looks like it's in the right place, but it has lots of play and it can wander about. I am going to do something about this in quite an unorthodox manner, but not in this episode. Now it's time to resolder the bracket to the base plate. I've applied some solder paste to the area. This is a mixture of ground up solder and flux. There is quite a lot of the original solder still in this area, so once I get it hot enough it should run together quite nicely. I tightened the 5BA screw to lock everything into position and then brushed water on the joint to cool it and solidify the solder. Then I cleaned up the excess solder using a wire brush. A rotary wire brush in fact fitted to my Proxon motor tool. At this stage I will add the usual necessity of wearing eye protection when doing jobs like this. After I cleaned up the solder, it didn't look brilliant, but then again, neither does the rest of the engine. Please note, this is not about engineering, it's about damage limitation. It looks like a lot of the damage was done during the initial manufacture of the engine, and then a subsequent strip down and rebuild made a thorough mess of it. The crosshead is at a strange angle. That's because it does not line up with the crosshead guides. I haven't fed the piston rod all the way through yet, and the more I feed the piston rod all the way through, the crosshead clearly remains out of alignment. The final position for the piston rod ended up being a bit further in than this, but what I'm doing at the moment is fitting a pinch bolt just to see what it looks like. And the pinch bolt makes no difference to the alignment of the crosshead. Time for a bit of gentle lubrication, I think. This is some 3-in-1 oil in a spray can, and I coated the parts with this. I use far too much as usual, but I'm also going to use this to clean the brass. Somewhat miraculously, the piston does slide in and out of the cylinder, but it does have 1 or 2 tight areas. I will attend to this in due course. Thankfully, the piston rod is so massively overscale on this engine, it doesn't really need a crosshead or crosshead guide. One problem is the crosshead is in a different position relative to the guides, depending on how far out the piston rod is. But I don't care about that. I've removed this wood screw that was really bothering me. There's a bit more work required on the crosshead fitting. I will show that in the next episode and in a subsequent episode. And I really hope that all the engineers out there have not found this one too distressing. Stay safe, stay healthy. Thanks for watching, and I hope you found it useful. Where did I put that can of butane? Please take the time to visit my Mainsteam Models website and click on the section of the website that says Video Playlists. And by doing that, you can find other videos that you may like to watch. And by using the playlists, you can actually watch the videos back to back.